Greetings, GameCola faithful, and welcome to the GameCola podcast. This is podcast number 193, buzzing around like a little bumblebee. And I am your host and podcast commander, Joseph Martin, joined by...
I'm Blu Ryder. I'm here. Yay.
I am James Pelster, and I am as busy as a bee.
As busy as a bee? Are you confident in that? Bees are pretty busy, James. I don't know if you know this.
I don't know. I feel like
they work and then they
busy.
die.
I don't know. That's kind of what it feels like. I just haven't reached the last stage yet.
How was the larval stage?
I don't know. I can't remember it.
Oh.
Speaking of bees and insects and larvae, I did not actually... the bee thing came out of, like, just, you know, the randomized space from which I pull the number jokes. But it actually works very well as a segue into the main topic that we wanted to start the podcast with. Because the bug video game is finally coming out.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Yes.
Spider-Man 3? What?
The singing, the silk singing, swinging, bleh,
the silk slinging slasher. Wait, no.
No. So there was a video game long ago called Hollow Knight, and now there will soon be a video game called Hollow Knight: Silksong. And people have been waiting for Hollow Knight: Silksong, sometimes just known as Hollow Knight Silksong or just Silksong, for quite some time. It has kind of taken on a Half-Life 3, Portal 3, Valve third game kind of spirit. And it's finally been announced, and we are within the very small window of temporary time where we know when it is coming out, but it has not come out yet, so we can talk about our immediate thoughts. And by we, I mostly mean James and maybe Blue. I don't know how much Blue has been personally invested in this.
Not at all.
So, James, I need you to tell us about some video games. Tell us about Hollow Knight, and tell us about Silksong and how we got here. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. So Hollow Knight is a video game of...
That's it. That's all we need to know.
Yeah, there you
okay,
go.
So...
Perfect. I mean, what else is there to say, really? That's all you need to know. It's a video game.
What kind of video game might it be, James?
It's a video game of the genre that you love the name of the most, which is Metroidvania. Which I just know is a term you are very, very much
favorite.
A fan of.
It's my favorite. It's a maze game.
Yes.
It's a backtracking maze game, but
exploration
like in a fun way.
Platformer.
Mm-hmm.
Exploration platformer is not a bad name, in my opinion.
You get the little power-ups. And, you go through a place, you go to the thing, and it's like, you can't go this way in the maze. And then you're like, okay, I guess I'll come back. And then you fight a boss, you get a power-up, and you're like, oh, now I can go back to the place that I couldn't go to before and go there. That's like the bread and butter of the quote-unquote Metroidvania, I feel. And my understanding is Hollow Knight does this very well.
Yes, it has a very good kind of gameplay loop, where you explore, you figure out sort of the limits of where you can currently go, and you keep exploring until you find something that allows you to reach new areas, or even just that lets you traverse existing areas in a new and interesting or easier way. And honestly, that's just, I love games that are like that. And I know that there's a lot more games like that than we would traditionally call Metroidvanias, even, but that just tends to be in this sort of Super Metroid / Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the sort of 2D platformer aesthetic tends to be my preferred way of playing games that have that kind of gameplay loop. But Hollow Knight is really interesting because it has a very unique art style, and it is set in a very unique world, which is bugs or just all kinds of critters and creepy crawlies. But because of the art style, they're very cutesy in their design. So, like, even though I'm normally not a big fan of bugs, and even sometimes I can get a little weirded out by this game, everything is very kind of cute or goofy. Like you've got these various sort of bug, sort of like soldiers who walk around and they go herp, 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 herp. And so even if they have like weird designs or they're just kind of creepy looking in certain ways, they're just goofy enough that I don't have to worry about taking the game too seriously, that I can just find it funny and goofy and silly.
They're also like all wearing these. Are they all helmets? Like these white. They look like bone helmets to me.
It's not all the characters. Actually, I would say that very few characters in the game actually have those little sort of bone type looking.
Okay, that's probably just the important ones then.
Even some of the characters that I wouldn't classify as important. I think it's just whatever species your character happens to be, which is not a bee, by the way. He does not have wings. Well, actually, you get spoilers, you get a power-up later that gives you sort of these fancy magical wings, which is basically just your double jump, but I digress. But no, there's all kinds of different bugs, and only a select few
video
of
game
them.
bugs.
Yeah.
Not errors in the code.
Yeah,
Insects.
it's a relatively glitch-free experience.
A bug-free bug game.
Yeah, it's a bug-free bug game.
Yay!
Yeah. It's bug-free but bug-full. But it's just really kind of cutesy and whimsical at times, even if sort of the environments tend to be sort of not all of the environments are sort of dark and dank and dreary, although some of them certainly are, but they're all just spectacular to look at. The art is one of the most impressive parts of the game. They're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. They're sort of this hand-drawn, thick outline aesthetic. There's a lot of dark colors. There's a very, very high contrast, I think, is what I mean to say. The music's also wonderful. It's a surprisingly challenging game because there's the moment-to-moment gameplay isn't usually too difficult, although the platforming challenges can get quite tricky. But the boss fights are definitely very challenging. I have a couple of boss fights that I have yet to actually beat the game, but I want to say I ran out of skill, shall we say, probably about 3/4 of the way through the game. And that was a couple years ago. If I were to replay it now from start to finish, I think I might have what it takes.
Well, you have to before you play the second one, right?
I hope I don't have to, but like, because I don't want to.
It checks your computer and is like, you don't have a completed save file saved anywhere on here. You cannot play this video game.
Yeah, it's like those games where if you play the demo, it imports your save data so that you can resume where you left off. Except it's like, well, you haven't played the first game, so go back and do that, and then come back here. Oh man, but it's wonderful. It's the controls are very, very tight. The boss battles are very challenging but very fun and rewarding. There's a particular boss fight that I always think of that took me a lot of attempts, but it just felt so good to finally start locking in and just getting in the zone and finally beating that boss. And it was, oh my goodness, it was wonderful. And I can't wait for more of that because it's been a while, so I'm struggling to think of any specific qualms that I had with the first game. If anything, I feel like just I could find the difficulty frustrating at times. It could also be a little bit confusing at points to figure out where it was I needed to go next. Like, I felt like I was just kind of stuck, like there was nowhere else I could go. But part of that is because, could be my own fault, because unlike other games of its genre, you have to sort of map things out yourself. You start out with a map that you write in each time you reach a sort of checkpoint, which is very interesting. So basically, every time you sit down on any checkpoint, you will fill
Because
in
the
your map.
checkpoints are like a bench.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
sit
think
down
you
on the
should
bench.
clarify.
Yeah, so you sit down on a bench.
That's not a normal thing that people do on checkpoints.
Yeah. So you just you stop at a bench, which is your sort of save and checkpoint, and you write down and fill in the details of the map you've explored thus far. But I think you can't do that until you've met the map maker in each region, which adds its own sort of little wrinkle in the whole thing. Is that sometimes if you have to pass through a certain area, sometimes you go through a later area of the game as sort of a connecting passage to an area that you're supposed to be in. But as a result, you just don't have the map for those 4 or 5 rooms that you have to go to, or sometimes even a little longer. And so you just have to memorize the layout basically until you can get the map. And the map is very detailed in how it shows each room. But for instance, if there's like doors or other obstacles, or there's certain paths that you need a power up that you don't have yet to get, there's no specific indication of that on the map. And you're given a whole bunch of different sort of generic colored tokens that you can mark the map with. But you have to remember what those mean, between playthroughs and all of that stuff. So it can be challenging to remember, what each marker means.
And so you're thinking like maybe that's something about the next game that you maybe want them to readdress in a different way?
Yeah, like even I don't know if I think it would lose something if you didn't map things out yourself. I just wish that, similar to for example, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where you can put down sort of shapes in markers. You're given more variety. I think in Hollow Knight, you're given just 4 different colored tokens: a blue one, a red one, a yellow one, and a black one. You can have like 4 or 5 of each of those colors. And so you basically, on the one hand, it gives you flexibility because there's no single definite symbol or meaning to these tokens, so any player can assign their own arbitrary meanings to each of these tokens. But then you have to remember it, and sometimes, there might be more, shockingly, there might be more than 4 situations in which you would need to mark a map that are independent from each other. And so you start having overlap between, okay, what token do I want to put here? This isn't really a situation where I would use the blue token or the red token or the yellow token or the black token.
If only there were more than 4 colors that existed.
Yeah, I know. Ooh, the other thing that I really thought was cool about this game, I realize I'm taking a tangent here, but yeah, that's something I would like to see potentially improved, although I'm not sure how specifically I would want it improved. But the other thing that I'd like to see is a continuation of using the sort of badge system that they have. And these badges, similar to games like Paper Mario, is they give you different abilities, especially. So like they might increase the damage that you deal. And they cost a certain amount of badge slots to use, or they give you lengthened invincibility frames, or they let you hold more health. And what was really interesting that you could do, if you didn't have any remaining badge slots, you could repeatedly attempt to equip the badge, and it will like jink, jink, chink, and sort of smack against the empty space where you don't have room, until eventually it crashes through and fits in the empty spot, but now your like health bar is shaking. Basically, you can forcibly equip more badges than you have room for, one more badge than you have room for, at the cost of, I think, taking increased damage, which is really interesting. Now, I'm not good enough that I was going to take that risk because I take way too much damage in that game. But man, oh gosh, there's so many interesting things about it that I could just go on and on about. And I like the fact that if you want to heal, you have to actually hit enemies or certain in-world objects that will sort of give you what's called spirit points. So it basically fills up a little bar, which you can use to either cast magic that might, say, harm an enemy, or to stop, take a moment, and heal yourself, which you have to be very careful about doing because the world continues moving on around you as you do this. So you're basically stopping in your tracks, say, in the middle of a fight, to heal up, just leaving you completely vulnerable. Unless, of course, you have a specific badge that actually gives you protection, which is, again, really cool. So the more you explore into certain areas, and especially little optional areas, you can purchase or find badges and that give you new abilities and new sort of options for how you can play the game. And that's so cool.
So, it seems like a good video game.
Oh yeah, very, very good video game.
So, is there any more to the Silksong hype beyond just they made a good video game and they said they're going to make another video game that's like that good video game? Like, is that it? Or is there more to it than that?
I think that's a huge part of it, but also part of it is that now the main character is Hornet, who was a very prominent character and a fan favorite character from the first game. Now, as far as I know, again, I've only played about 3/4 of the original, so maybe there's some big, plot twist or something like that. As far as I know, you only ever meet her as an adversary, someone that you battle periodically throughout the game. She's sort of like your rival in that sense, except more so, I think there's some sort of description that she's like the princess of the world or something, of the kingdom that you're in or something like that. She's some kind of really important person, and she's actively trying to stop you from doing whatever it is you're doing. And truth be told, I don't even fully know what it is you're attempting to do in the game. I think they explain it at the very beginning, like you're trying to wake these sort of sleeping deities or something like that, or the souls of long gone, royal bugs or something like that, and she's trying to stop you for reasons which I don't recall if she explains in the game. Again, it's been a little while, but she is a very important character, and she's one of my favorites. She's probably my favorite character, in the game. And so that definitely adds some appeal to it. It's like, ooh, what are we going to be doing? Why are we playing as her? What's her adventure going to be like? Is this going to be like some kind of prequel? Is it a sequel? Is it what is this? And of course, woohoo, we get to play as favorite character from the first game.
Mm-hmm. It's almost, the perfect analogy. The video game Mega Man Zero, where you play.
Yes. Actually,
Zero, everyone's favorite character.
That's actually a really great analogy, honestly. And I think that those two things are really what it's all about, is that this first game was a huge, huge hit, fantastic game. And so people were like, hey, there's more of it, and we get to play as this character we all really like. Give me, please. Gimme.
So, okay, the other thing to note about this is that it has been quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Is it 10 years? It's close if it's not. Actually, it's probably a little bit less. It's probably like 8 or 9.
I want to say that it has been about 7 years. I want to say
it's a little
2018,
in 2017,
2019.
so it's been about 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah, Hollow Knight is 2017, yeah.
So, it's been a long time. And I have read on the internet, like, different things about this. Like, one thing was, like, basically they're saying, we wanted to take our time. We did it slow. We wanted to make sure there was no crunch. We had all the time to put everything in the video game. And that's noble. And I'm just going to be contrarian for the sake of the podcast because I feel like you're going to come at this from the other side, James. My concern is sometimes, you can leave stuff cooking in the oven too long. I think there have not been a lot of cases where having a game be in production for so long gives a strong return on that investment. And I want them to be right? Like, I want them to have cracked how to do this in such a way where, like, you take all that time and you make it work, and it's worth the wait, and it's a very good video game. Where are you sitting on this? And maybe also, like, within the spheres that you're in, where are people sitting on this?
So I tend to agree with you in that it has been a really, really long time, and it feels to me like there may have just been some development hell. Honestly, like I would
in
be
the
shocked.
interview I read, it was the exact opposite. Development was going so well that they just kept going and going.
But, like,
Interesting.
would they...
It was development heaven is what they called it.
I mean,
they
could just be saying that, though.
I mean,
and
they
also,
could be lying to us. They
I
could
mean-
have been, like, silent for 8 years, and then the first thing they say to us is lies coming out of their mouths. But that seems weird.
It does seem weird. I
don't have a stake in this because I didn't play this
Right.
game. I don't know these people. But it sounds weird that they would lie about
Right, like,
that.
I don't want to just accuse strangers of lying, right? Like, that seems rude. But I'm trying to think, like, if they, right, like, if they, and, like, I wouldn't, like, necessarily fault anyone for this, right? But, like, if they hadn't really been working that hard on it for a little while, and then when they were ready, they, like, kind of kicked it into high gear, and, like, put the rubber to the road and, like, put it together. Like, that's a different thing, but I don't think they would say that if that's what they did, necessarily.
That's the biggest criticism I've seen levied towards Team Cherry, which is the development team.
I wouldn't even call it a
these
criticism
games.
from my perspective, right?
Well,
like, you made the
but-
good video game, you could do whatever you want. If you want to wait a while until
Well,
you start making the
here's the
next
thing.
one.
Here's what I mean. The criticism is the lack of transparency. Because, like, yeah, like, I had not heard that this was such a thing. And maybe I'm just out of the loop, because I haven't been following things super closely, like I was for a while, but after this many years, I just kind of let it, I was just like, all right, well, it'll come out when it comes out. I don't need to worry about it, because when it's going to come out, I will hear about it. Because everyone's been waiting for so long. So maybe I'm just, uninformed. But I was under the impression that we just really weren't hearing much from the team at all. For the first 5 or 6 years, we just heard, yeah, it's going well. And then just like, could you explain, like, what's going on? Why is it taking this long? Like, and so that's the first time I've heard of, like, oh, we just wanted to keep going. We just wanted to keep doing more and more and making it better and better. That's the first time I've heard of anything like that. And if that's the case, then wow, cool, amazing. But from my prior experience with games that take a long time to get made, generally speaking, it's not because everything is going very well.
Right. So I'm just like, if this is the case, they are severely bucking the trend. And I would like that to be the case. I would like that to be kind of a model of, hey, this is how it can work. And we can make, right? What's that? I want, I don't know if it's I want worse. I think that the actual quote is like, I want worse games that take more time to make and are, I don't remember the full.
Worse graphics and the devs are paid better.
Right. Like, these things. I think also, like, sort of reflecting on it now as we're talking about it, I do wonder if my mind has kind of been poisoned by Kickstarter and other kind of crowdfunding
yeah, you had to live through
cycles.
Mighty Number 9.
I lived through Mighty Number 9, right? But you have to
pretty rough.
remember that the vibe is very different, because in something like Mighty Number 9, right? Like, my understanding is that whatever money they paid developers, paid the team, paid to put this all together, came from the sales of the original video game and whatever else this company has. Maybe they got investment from other people, but like it wasn't like crowdfunding, right? So
Right.
there's not like a specific, like you could argue like from an artistic point of view, like they didn't even have to make a second video game, right? Like they don't owe anything to anybody in the way that like Kickstarter games do owe people things because you directly took their money for the express purpose of doing something. And I wonder if I've been, most of the time when I've had games where it's been this game was supposed to come out and it hasn't come out and it's been a really long time, thinking back, most of these are crowdfunding games. And I wonder if that's where some of this fairly unfounded bitterness perhaps is coming from.
I don't know. I feel like, well, in this case, the bitterness may be unfounded. However, in the broadly speaking, I think the bitterness has been founded.
That's a bit unfounded in this particular instance because the situation, I think it's kind of like, right, like like with Stardew Valley and the Haunted Chocolatier, right? Like, I don't know, maybe I haven't looked that deeply. Maybe there's more updates about it, but it's been a while since the Haunted Chocolatier was announced, and I have not heard very much about it. Certainly not like it's coming out imminently. But also, like, as far as I know, he's funding that development of that game just by the fact that Stardew Valley made a bunch of money, right? So, like, he can do whatever he wants. Like, there's no, it's like, from my perspective, I don't care. And, like, I also wouldn't care if, like, someone, like that, like I said before, like, if they just didn't really work on it for 3 years, they just kind of, like, very low-key spitballed ideas, and then, like, when they were ready, they decided to, like, really start working on the game. But I do wonder if there is an expectation that would, I could imagine a world where, like, there's an entitlement of the people who want to play the video game to, right, like you said, like, they weren't transparent. And it's like, do they need to be transparent? Right? Like, to what?
Good point.
What do you...
But, yeah.
It's, like, there's a community aspect of this, right? So, like, there's a benefit to it. There are trade-offs. But again, like, with so many games that have had this direct responsibility, and so many things, too, right? Like, there's tons of stuff where people have invested their money in things with expected promises that then evaporated into thin air. I can understand a sort of bitterness about that, and why, even just my expectations have been dashed so many times. I just want something to tell me that it's worth having expectations. And I think that's a tricky space to be in. Like, most times a game comes out, they don't, like, do an interview where they talk about how long it took and provide this context. And I think maybe it's just that this isn't a thing that has happened, and I don't know if we have, like, a sort of established way to respond to it like we do with a lot of things, right? Like, oh, this video game took a long time because it got handed off to so many people. Like, it got handed off between studios over a long period of time. This video game took a long time to come out because it was originally targeting one platform, and then it was decided that it was going to go to this other platform. That also doesn't usually end up great. This video game took a longer time to come out because the Kickstarter campaign put forth a release date that was not feasible, because that was an easier way to make money, because it's a lot much easier to ask for money for a game that's going to come out in a year than a game that's going to come out in 2 years, or whatever the distance between dates is. And so I don't know I think maybe just in general, we've never had a game with a good reason to come out to take so long. And I think we need a positive case of this before we, as a gaming media industry, or maybe just me personally, Joseph Martin, we'll see, like, can really believe it. We've been hurt so many times before.
Yeah.
That,
and, like,
I don't want
to believe.
I don't want it to feel like I'm calling out these folks personally, right? Like, I don't know them. I imagine that they're probably good people. They've certainly built up goodwill enough that they can do something like this, right? So, like, I'm not calling them out. I'm not being hyper suspicious of them. I'm trying to describe, like, my baseline feeling in terms of how justified I think it is, where I think those feelings are coming from. And hopefully I've done a good job without insulting anyone. which is not my intent.
Yeah.
And if you say that you don't intend to insult someone, then even if you accidentally did insult someone, it doesn't count, right? That's the way the internet works.
I don't think it's true that there aren't any games where the delay was not good. Like, wasn't like Breath of the Wild delayed a lot? And
Tears
also,
of the Kingdom
like,
was delayed a lot.
Breath of the Wild did get delayed a few times, but also, like...
Last Guardian, I remember that was in for a long time.
But, like, I don't think... Not this long, though, right? Like...
Was it not? I thought that one was, like, 10 years.
The Last Guardian?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't... jog my memory. What's The Last Guardian?
It's by the same people who did Shadow of the Colossus. It's the narrative game with the big dog.
Right.
It was announced in 2009 and was released in 2016, so 7 years, not 8, but pretty close.
And that game, I don't actually remember much about that game, but it's based on the way you're using it as an example, I assume it turned out all right.
It was pretty good, yeah. I
mean, yeah.
guess I don't know how everyone's response to it was, but it was...
I think...
Right.
Sorry.
It makes sense. Like, it's not like it never happens, but even then, like, I don't know how high profile of an example that was. I mean, again, like, that's also like 10 years ago, right? Almost. So it doesn't happen very often if that is, like, and also Breath of the Wild, right? Like...
The other thing is, because for me, I have been excited for this game. Like, some people have just been, like, rabid for this game, but, like, generally speaking, it's more like, I'd really like to hear something about this game. I'd really like for it to be coming out, rather than, so it's not so much of a hype train as it is, like, a sort of a desire, like a really strong desire to have this finally be ready to come out. And because there's been so little communication, there's, like, yes, we can sort of imagine what the game's going to be like, but we don't have any sort of, like, promises of what it's going to be like other than just the next Hollow Knight game.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, I feel like it sort of helps avoid this sort of runaway hype train effect. And that's probably also why they chose to reveal it so close to when they're going to release it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that they're like, all right, get excited. It's coming out, but not too excited. Like, yes, this is a big thing. It's really important. You know, we're all very happy. But we're like, all right, awesome, finally, I can't wait. And not like, yes, I've been waiting, for all of these things that they talked about. Because if that makes sense. So it's not like there's no way it can be over-promised if they don't promise anything. And I think that helps sort of set my expectations in a way that I'm like, I can't imagine that this game is going to be bad. And so as a result, I'm just really excited and happy that it's about to come out, and I am expecting to enjoy it because I know that I enjoyed the previous game, and that's all I'm really worried about, you know?
Yeah. The other example that comes to mind is Metroid Prime 4. That's another game, more like an sort of imminently releasing game. When is that coming out?
According to the image that was in the poster that was in the subway, it's available now.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I feel like I would have...
That's right, they accidentally posted that to her. It's available, yeah. So sometime this year, I think, is all we know.
But, like, that's another one. And, like, to be fair, in that one, their thing was, we started over. Like... We started making the video game, and we went back to the drawing board, and like that's another thing that I don't think we hear stuff like that very often, and you do wonder if anything like that happened with Silksong, right? Like where they got somewhere, it's like, okay, we just need to start over. I don't know. I think there's at a certain point it's there's a lot of speculation when the game has not even come out yet, and it's coming out soon. And then also, like, we'll only have the testimony of the people who worked on the game to know like what the development was like, and it's up to them how much to share about that. But if it does sort of seem like if this is really the approach that they did, that they also seem kind of interested in advertising that as a way of saying like this is how you can make games. That you don't need to do all of the things that all the big companies say are necessary to make video games that cause people who make the video games to suffer. So that would be a good thing. It would also be kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
Or at least not a
In
frequent
contrast,
one. Mm-hmm. Contrast?
in contrast, there is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, which also recently had its release date revealed, and it is also a lot sooner than one might have expected.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is that it's oh no.
Oh,
Like
does it
before,
not look good?
it looked good like 5 years ago, but that was before they like fired the creator of the original who was heading up the new one, and that was what their marketing was based off of. And then they also like fired like 3 development teams, I think, and just kept switching it to a new one. And so, and now we know that it's gonna be missing like a whole bunch of stuff that you would expect from a sequel, and also not only that, but it is launching, and like the different, so in Vampire the Masquerades you pick your clan, your is what kind of vampire you are, and that's at the start, and character creation, and it's sort of like class. The new one, there's more than one vampire clan that you can choose at the beginning of the game that is locked behind DLC. So it's not even like post game DLC, is just like character creation DLC basically that like affects you for the whole game, and it's not a good look. It's
Which is not a
definite,
new
like,
thing, to be fair.
It does seem
when
bad,
That's not a
though.
new concept.
It's new. It's
Yeah, no,
like
it's not
if
good.
you. It's like if you played Baldur's Gate and you could only play as one class and you had to buy all the others. That's pretty bad. Especially when you take out all the RPG elements that are in Baldur's Gate first.
Yeah, but what I mean is that you could reframe it. You could there's another scenario in which case that's like more acceptable, which is like Baldur's Gate 3 releases, and then like they're like, hey, by the way, we were also adding some new, characters or classes or something as
Except
DLC.
that's not what they're doing.
Right, I get you. And also, I do have one tangent to go on after this, related to release dates.
Well, I
But
just
yeah,
wanted
oof.
to. I was like, hey, I know about a thing that is tangentially kind of related to this topic, but contrasts. So,
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what is your thing next?
So are either of you familiar with the indie game Baby Steps?
no. Not even a little bit.
It's another Bennett Foddy game.
Oh, yes. Yes, I am.
The
I
one
know
where you're
Bennett
this
Foddy.
guy.
I know Getting Over It. And didn't he like make a rock climbing one also?
Yeah, getting
That
over
was
No,
Getting
no.
Over It with Bennett Foddy.
No,
That's
sorry.
the
I
one.
mean, like like yes, in the Getting Over It, you're in like a cauldron and you are like rock climbing. I thought he also made like one that's like more like traditional rock climbing, where it's like you're like moving the person's arms. But maybe I'm just thinking of a completely
I
different
think
game.
that is Baby Steps. That's
Yeah, you might be thinking of this game.
But I thought it
Like,
already
where you
came
have
That's
to-
the
out.
one. That's the one where you climb up a mountain.
But they're both
Yeah, 'cause
okay. Tell me more about Baby Steps, and I'll see if this is the game that I know
it's
about.
in 3D, so it's a
Okay,
3D game. So you're just basically this person who like doesn't walk very well, and so you have to guide like left and right steps, and then also like climbing over obstacles, making him jump. and he like at the slightest incorrect thing will just ragdoll and fall. It's like I don't really know how to describe it because it's a Bennett Foddy game. It's hard to because it's absurd and it's wacky and it's strange, and it generally involves making an easy thing difficult.
Right. It's specifically based on getting over it, but I think this has just sort of become perhaps his thing in a way. Like,
I mean, Quap came first.
right, but like
Yes.
it's in that genre of like the difficulty. Like we're making a game that controls kind of poorly, or at least unintuitively. You can argue about, right, like poorly kind of puts a value on it, whereas like poorly almost suggests that it was like by accident, or like due to a lack of ability
Yeah.
to make good controls. Where it's like it's on purpose. It is not intuitive. On purpose, it is
Yeah.
like really hard.
They are intentionally obtuse.
Right. With the idea that like, then you get frustrated, and there's stuff that comes from that, and at the very least, it makes for very good video content of, I
It's
fell
kind of
down
a-
the
it's kind of a
mountain
rage
again.
They're kind of rage games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even it's so that seems to have just been Bennett Foddy's thing for the most part, starting all the way back at Quap. Is how can I just take this basic thing and mess with the controls to make it really difficult? But anyway, so this game is going to be coming out relatively soon. I don't know if they had released I don't know if they had unveiled the release date prior, but they just put out a video a couple of days ago after Hollow Knight Silksong's date was revealed that their release date was either now being pushed back or was just like at the end of September. They said it was like September 23rd, and they showed this character walking around on this big sort of like figurine of Hornet from Hollow Knight Silksong with like Hollow Knight sound effects playing. So they were like, I don't know if they had already unveiled a prior release date and that it was like really close to Silksong or not, but it feels like they're basically saying, hey, Hollow Knight Silksong is going to be a thing, so we're releasing later because we know that if we
that happened
release
to a lot
really
of
close to
games.
Silksong, we're not going to be able to compare. We're going to have no news coverage because it's all going to be Silksong. And they were like not even, they were just being absolutely upfront. They're like, hey, Silksong is a thing, so we're going to be releasing at the end of September. So it was quite funny.
Blue, did you say you knew some other examples of games that did that?
Oh, I just know that there were like a half dozen at least that I'd heard of in passing that were like, yeah, we have to move now.
Because of Silksong specifically?
Yeah, because of Silksong specifically.
Yeah, that's what I like. I think some of the comments were mentioning that. It's like, yeah, multiple indie games are like, well, we didn't know when Silksong was going to come out, and now they're just like, hey, it's coming out in 2 weeks, so we're like, we
I
may
think
have to
one of
remake
them
things.
even like had just announced their release date too, like the day before or something, and they're like, okay, never mind.
Which, I mean, like, on the one hand, that sucks, and I feel bad, but also, like, I appreciate that like, that video for Baby Steps, like, I actually really like that video because they're like, hey, we're gonna be, like, they're like, Silksong is a huge thing. Like, they're acknowledging. They're not trying to be upset or anything. They're just like, hey, we acknowledge that Silksong is going to be a huge thing, so we're just gonna kind of back up a little bit. We apologize, but like, I don't know. I appreciate that it's not like, at least from what I've seen in the circles that I've seen, it's not like there's no outrage from other indie devs at the fact that Silksong's coming out.
Well, yeah, I guess it would be in that they didn't have time to prepare for the release date, right? Like if you announce the release
Yeah,
date
like,
3 months ahead,
sure
then
it's
like you have a little bit more
complicates
flexibility.
things.
So like that
Yeah.
is kind of the thing about announcing the release date of a really big game so close to when it's coming out, is that now you kind of have to scramble get out of the way. I do think though, when it comes to like indie publishing, at least, that probably the literal release date is not so like, I don't know. Like I find it. I imagine that to a certain extent, it kind of comes down to, all right, it's gonna be around this time, and when we just have to pick a day. And maybe there's some like optimization that goes into it. Maybe they look at some games. Like the fact that it's like September, that means I think there is a bit of like trying to get everything in. The big stuff is like at the end of the year, where I would guess like awards, like you want to have a little bit of a recency bias for like end of the year awards. And you also know that most of the big studio games tend, though I don't know how strong this is these days as much, but it tends to be like November, a little bit of late October, a little bit of early December, right? To like get like, okay, this is a big game, so all the people are going to buy it when it comes out, and then we'll get another wave of it in the Christmas rush, and that'll really make our fourth quarter analysis spreadsheets look very good. And I guess indie games kind of play around that a little bit. So I imagine that it's a bit of a tricky thing, but it's not also as locked in as something like a movie release, where maybe you have to like kind of put together a bunch of stuff ahead of time and like pay people and say like, this is when the ad campaign's going to be, and this is when we're going to reserve these theaters, right? And so like you can kind of get locked in. And then also it feels like there are very specific weekends where there's like, this is like the weekend where we put like this big movie and this big movie. I don't know. I think the fact that like anybody can download and play the video game at any time, there's not like, that's probably like the biggest difference from movies. It's just like there's no analog for a theatrical release, where it's just when I think the release date really has the strongest impact. I don't even know what that would look like. What would be like, you go down to your theater. This is, guys, I've learned how we save movie theaters. Do you want to know what it is? I've just had this amazing idea.
No. No, not interested. That's not video games.
No, you have releases of big video games, and you let people come to the theater and play the video games on the big theater screen. And you have releases.
I mean, that would be cool. That would, honestly,
and
Hollow Knight's music and sound effects would sound amazing on freaking like THX. Boom.
Let's also just ignore the fact that in a movie theater, lots of people can all watch the movie at the one time, but just because it's a big screen doesn't mean any more people get to play the video game at one time. And so you'd have to have...
Let's play Tetris 99 on an IMAX screen.
Yes. There could be some video games where this would like work with it in a way, where like you have a release where people can like bring, their console, or like I feel like it would almost have to be a Switch, or maybe a Steam Deck, but again, like something where you could bring it to the theater and they have like a special view where you can see like everybody's stuff all at the same time in a way that you wouldn't be able to do at home. There's probably something there. Is it worth all the effort? Will the money like come back? Probably not. But am I not just allowed to imagine cool things sometimes about video games? Huh? Why do you guys gotta be on my throat about this? No. Why do you guys have to be so combative and resistant to my good ideas? Why do you always criticize me and everything I say and do?
Gosh, Joe. Well, why do you just have to have so many bad ideas?
Why do you have to be like, why? Excuse me, Mr. Silksong, what if the devs are just like, what if it's all bad?
What if they're just lying? What if they're lying and the video game is bad? What if those two things?
Hello, Mr. Contrarian. Why do you think we have to disagree with you?
Man, video games.
Also,
oh, do you have another?
I
tangent?
also just saw I saw no. This is back to all the indie devs pushing back the release dates of their games. Mm-hmm. I saw an alternate take from a friend of mine who said, oh, that may not be because they think they're going to get, like, wiped out in terms of marketing. It's because all of the marketing and development and bug testing people, or like, people who can accept feedback for their game, are just going to be too busy playing Silksong. Which I think is a very good... I like that. It's like, well, it's not that we couldn't release here. Our game would still do well, But we wouldn't be able to deal with any bug reports or stuff because we'd all be busy playing this other game.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that.
Speaking of other games, but unrelated to games that have not yet been released, are there any video games that you've been playing in recent times? James, I know you told us before you haven't been doing your homework.
No, I have not. I'm sorry. I have, again, it has been, I don't even know how long it's been since I last touched. It's been over a month since I last touched the 100 line. I'm about to check real quickly and just see when exactly it was that I last played that
It was
game.
probably the podcast where I gave you the homework assignment, because I don't think you've played it anymore.
It was,
since.
actually. I last played the game on June 8th.
That's
It
bad.
is now September, or it will be when you listen to this podcast.
You're gonna have to retake the podcast. I know you signed up for pass fail, but like we're in deep fail right now, James. I'm afraid. Like you've so much.
We're gonna have to go back in time and re-record the previous podcast.
Exactly. We have to go back in time, and you'll have to
And
have.
it's all your fault.
Yeah, you'll have to have played the video game more.
You know, that's not entirely out of character for the 100 line, actually.
What video game have you been playing in recent times instead of doing your homework?
So I'm going to be honest, I really haven't actually been playing that many video games. I've been playing a little bit. I think I mentioned on a previous
homework, not just in this class, but every class.
I'm turning into Jetty a little bit. I haven't been playing many I have been playing video games, but they've either been video games that I've played before, like I've gotten back into Kerbal Space Program a little bit. The previous podcasts, I think I've mentioned I've been playing some Hot Shots Golf on my PlayStation 2. That's been fun. I think I've talked about this, right?
I don't know if you have. Or not very much.
I think
I don't remember it.
Has.
You probably mentioned it.
I think you mentioned it last time.
Yeah. So I've gotten some new sort of software set up on my PlayStation 2. There's some community developed software that is basically an English translation of some actual software that Japan got like in the 2000s, which has been modified to allow you to play games from the hard drive, which I have been purchasing some Japanese imports of PS2 games. And so now this actually lets me play them on my actual PS2 because PlayStation 2 games are region locked. So you can't normally play imports. But now this lets me basically dump the disc onto my computer and then copy it to the hard drive add-on of the PlayStation 2 and then play it from there using this community developed software. So I've been playing the Japanese version of these two PS2 golf games because, as it turns out, they have almost entirely different casts of characters. Like, their whole thing is that you can play from a bunch of different, like, wacky, golf characters. But the cast of characters is completely different between North America and Europe and Japan. I think Europe and Japan tend to share most of the characters, but not all of them. But North America had an almost completely different roster in all of the games. And so I've just been checking that out, seeing what the original Japanese version is like. And that's just kind of what and then I've also just kind of been, actually, no, I'm a fool. I've completely forgotten the big game that I've been playing, which you would know if you've been watching the YouTube channel. Yeah, see, I'm sorry. It's been, this is how busy I am, is that I've been just kind of frazzled in the brain. I've been playing Super Metroid, and I've actually finished it at this time, although it won't be quite finished when you see this video. The playthrough will last for a total of 10 episodes, spoiler alert. And then I've gotten started.
I have a comment.
Yes, what is your comment?
In that playthrough, you say you get the Spazer, and you're like, I wonder why it's called this. Even though you earlier mentioned Star Trek, and you're playing a game where it's like a space phaser, because they were not using the word phaser, and is it not just a space phaser? Is that not?
I don't
It
think
feels like the
so.
obvious thing, because
I would never have thought of that. I don't think that's the case. Because also, like, a phaser just normally shoots, like, a phaser in Star Trek just shoots a single beam.
yeah, but
So
it's spaced. The three things are spaced. It's a spaced phaser.
I see a spaced out
I
phase.
did, Blue. The way you said it, I did also think of it like the phasers in
It's
Star Trek are also
the
in space.
phasers.
Like
Yeah, I was gonna say,
they
I
are
don't know
also
why
phasers
I
for
still
outer
think
space.
I think that would also stand if you're going to not use the word phaser, and they're like, okay, well,
I
still give
I
it almost the same name, just slightly different.
it,
Spazer. There you go.
I mean, I don't know. I can't I can't deny this, but for me, it doesn't pass the vibe check. Um,
Okay. To me, it
I
seemed incredibly obvious, so I was very confused.
I could be like, maybe you're right. You could totally be right. I have no idea, but that it just at least never occurred to me personally. And having heard it, I can see where you're coming from, but I don't know if I think that that's why it's called that. That is an interesting point, though. I don't know. It is a mystery. But I've also started playing Super Metroid Project Base, the new version of one of my favorite ROM hacks. And it's been also really fun because now I'm sort of exploring this overhauled world that just got released in this new update. And so it's been equal parts, yeah, I know where to go. I've been through this a bunch of times. And also, whoa, what? There's new enemies here. Whoa, what? The layout of the level is a little bit different from how I expect. Oh, wow, they enhanced the graphics a whole bunch in this area. It looks super pretty now. So it's been really fun. And I will probably start releasing that series close to when the vanilla game comes to a close, but it's been really, really nice. I've been thinking about maybe doing something like Spyro the Dragon or something akin to that as well. It's weird going back to doing solo playthroughs again after doing like Dragon Warrior for
Yeah.
2 games in a row. I miss having co-commentators, but Jetty I think or no, it wasn't Jetty. It was Beep Boop said that they think that it's nice to have a solo playthrough because they feel like the game is
I thought
paced
I
at
said
such a
that.
way that
I mean,
there's a
Joe
lot
said
to. Was
that.
it you? Oh yeah, it was you.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Yeah, my brain is not working today, guys.
Yeah, because I was like just about to say that. Yeah, I think Super Metroid really suits a solo playthrough because it's meant to be
Yeah.
atmospheric. It's meant to be kind of a little quiet. Sometimes, which I think is like the struggle of a solo playthrough, is that either you have to be on 100% all the time, constantly going, so there's no dead
Which
air
is
whatsoever.
hard.
Yeah, or you have to like let there be some dead air, and in our modern culture, dead air is dead video, and there's a fear that like if you are not constantly saying things that people will lose interest very quickly. And I feel like the
Which is why
vibes
I
of
haven't done a
Metroid,
solo playthrough yet.
the vibes of Metroid are such, Super Metroid are such that it can kind of hold that space well. And so you can not be constantly talking all the time, filling up every single atom of space, and still kind of have a cohesive like piece of work that like feels natural. Versus like in an RPG where it's like if I'm watching someone not speak while they fight in their 365th RPG battle, like I am going to probably stop watching the video. So it helps to have more people on so that there can just be full conversations and keeping that moving. Especially when there's just really not something else to talk about. Blue,
Yeah,
what video games have you
that's
been
me.
playing in recent times?
A bunch of early access games that I've been playing or played earlier in the year have gotten pretty significant updates. Soulstone Survivor is actually out of early access. It's full released, and so I've been playing that a bit. Windblown is also, that's the multiplayer roguelike by the same people that did Dead Cells, and that's had a bunch of updates, so that has been fun to get back into. I started Wanderstop, which is a game about running a tea shop, and I usually can't do cozy games, but this one allegedly has a good story, so hopefully we'll see how that goes for me.
I see. I feel like there was a commonality. There's like some vibe that all the titles of the video games that you mentioned shared.
I don't... vaguely
It's the
magical.
they're
Well,
they're
say
all they're all less complicated than the 100-line
so
Last
that
Defense
was an
Academy.
aspect of it. They were not the paragraphs that are the video games that James has been playing most recently.
I see.
Which you also play games like that too. So it's not like a
Yeah, I should start 100-line Last Defense Academy at some point soon.
you got to play at least the other pathways, and eventually we'll cover all 100 pathways on the GameCola podcast.
Uh-huh.
Guys, that's your cue.
Sorry?
It's your
I
cue.
did not hear. Oh, I did not. I don't know what my cue is. I'm tired. What am I queuing up for?
There's a clear pattern that's been established over many podcasts, and then also in this podcast specifically, about what should probably happen next.
I've been working overtime every day. Leave me alone.
I sympathize. I sympathize with you, and yet I cannot do this next bit without you or James's help.
So, Joe, what video games have you been playing in recent times?
Well, I'll tell you.
Oh, usually you just don't play any.
I finished a video game, I'll have you know, Blu Ryder. I finished Koromon. I got to the credits.
Koromon. That's
Come on,
different.
It's really doing a number on you, huh? Now I feel bad.
Tired.
Now I feel bad, but I still have the energy within me, so I guess I just have to keep it going.
There's a holiday this weekend, so I get a day off. How is it better or worse than an average Pokemon game?
What is an average Pokemon game? That's a more complicated
I don't know.
question.
Okay, your least favorite mainline Pokemon game. Is Koromon better or worse?
Like, there's...
I'm trying to find some sort of gauge.
Is it worse than my least favorite? Like, I would say, okay, like, there's some games, right, like the early Pokemon games, right, like the first Gen 1 games are, like, A, they're old, B, they are kind of buggy, and the Pokemon generally gets better, you know, with certainly from that area. I don't think people would argue that the games generally kind of improve from there, at least for a while. As a whole, yeah, I would say it kind of gets past like Gen 1, Gen 2 in their like original forms. It's sort of targeting, like if you read some of the developer stuff, they're sort of targeting a sort of Gen 3 nostalgia, so Game Boy Advance kind of thing. So there's an element there. There are parts that I think kind of surpass. So like the way that the Koromon are depicted with the sprite art and the detailed backgrounds and the animations in the battle scenes, that feels like kind of a solid continuing from like Gen 5, the last main series game to use like pixel art for the characters in the video game. And so sort of if you imagine a sort of splitting off to the 3D models from the pixel art, you could kind of feel like in some ways Koromon continues the pixel art style in like a really beautiful way. Like I think it is pretty clearly one of the strongest parts of the video game. There are other parts that, I mean, I talked about this kind of at length, but just to use it in the kind of comparison that we're talking about now. Even the original first Pokemon game, when you went into the trainer battles, you got these, like, larger close-up views of the trainers that you were fighting. And that added some depth to the world that Coromon doesn't really have with its human characters. And so, like, there's some aspects there where it's just, like, it's not bad as much as it's not present within, and it's just a part of the scope of the game. But, like, it's still, even though they had a budget and they had to make this happen some way, and I'm sympathetic to that, and I don't think it's like, oh, you did something wrong. Like, when you inevitably have to compare it to Pokemon, which is just what you have to do in this situation. Like, you feel that, I feel that gap personally. I think other people may not care about it as much, and maybe they were right to target those people who don't care about it as much. I mean, it is a good game. Like, I felt like I got my money's worth out of it. Certainly gave me a lot of interesting things to think about. But I think the hope is that they can take what I feel like is a decent success of this game, at least, and bring that into something that kind of shores up where it's, again, not lacking because it was done poorly as much as just like there are certain things that they just did not put in the video game, and probably because they just like had to pick and choose what they spent time on putting in the video game.
Right. What is your favorite thing Coromon gave you to think about?
I mean, like, there's not one thing that necessarily jumps out. It's just like this compare and contrast, being able to kind of hold up the Venn diagram of Pokemon as a franchise and this game, and like see, like, okay, when you do actually start changing things about the baseline formula, how does that change the experience? What stuff in Pokemon is just kind of like an inertia and not really that important to it? And what stuff is actually, I didn't realize this is very important, right? Like, I didn't realize how much I would miss the characters. And having just some kind of character to grab onto. And I think you hear me restate that a lot, because that's the part that sticks out to me the most. But also, like, just like little things. Like, there's a part where this is like a little bit spoilery, so like hit your forward button like 2 or 3 times to skip the spoiler. But there is
Done. Boom.
Introduced
Bye.
mid-game-ish is a type that is resistant to every single type, and it's kind of like it's part of the narrative, and that just doesn't really work. It just kind of slows things down. It's meant to be a difficulty thing, and like it's meant to kind of show like, oh, these are the bad guys and this is like what it is, but it just doesn't really work for me. It feels like it just sort of slows things down, and it was an interesting idea on paper, but I don't think it really landed. Yeah, but they're also working on a second one. And so what'll be really interesting is this seems like more of an opportunity for them to, if there's stuff that they just didn't have the ability to put in the first game, that this will be like an opportunity for them to kind of get everything in, if that's what they want to do.
I assume it sold kind of well. Like, I've heard of it. I've seen, like...
Yeah. I feel like just by the fact that we've heard of it probably means that it did, all right. And they're making another one, so that suggests that, like, it was worth, there was certainly enough to keep the lights on for them to keep making the video games. So, we'll see how that goes. And I think it is an interesting way, just as someone who likes to think about video games a lot, having this kind of compare and contrast, which is sort of something that is struggled with, monster taming, creature collecting, whatever you want to call it, has been that it's hard to get these kinds of compares and contrasts. A lot of the time, people who are trying to, quote unquote, take on Pokemon will make a game in a completely different genre. And it's like, well, this isn't, you just had a game with a bunch of cute little characters in it, and then it's a different video game. And that's not necessarily the same kind of compare and contrast, right? Like, Temtem is supposed to be an MMORPG. That's a little bit closer, but like that's a different structure. And then, Pal World is like craft survival, and that's a very different kind of video game. And the Pokemon is kind of at its core an extension, a branch off of JRPG, like your traditional JRPG. You know, Red and Blue have a lot of comparisons to like Dragon Warrior 5, I think, with the kind of understanding that would have been the game that the developers would have played a lot of by the time they were making Pokemon. Though 6 may have been out. The timelines are a little, I don't know the timelines that detailed. And I feel like JRPGs are not nearly as popular within broader online gaming media. And maybe this is projection, but it almost feels like there is a kind of indignant anger that one of the most successful video games, video game franchises, is based on a JRPG and not on one of the more generally popular genres of video game. Like, just like, oh, why does Pokemon still have turn-based battles? And it's like, what do you mean? Like, yes, it is interesting to see them explore in games like, you know, the new Legends game that's coming out, Z-A, Z-A.
You say that like these are all different games.
I know, it's funny.
It makes
It's
it
all the
sound
same
like
video
these
game.
are all...
Like,
Pokemon
but it's like,
pizza
to a certain
flavor.
extent, it's like, but this is like a fundamental, like you're saying, why do they keep making it in this genre? And yeah, to me, it kind of feels like you don't really respect, like, you know, when there were a lot of people who, I know you liked Pal World, Blue, and I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm more talking about like content.
Well, I don't even know what
online
it's
people.
like since launch, because I know they have to change a bunch of stuff because of the lawsuit. So, like, I don't even know what it plays like anymore.
I didn't realize they were going to change it that much.
Oh, yeah, they've had to remove a bunch of stuff.
That is, okay, that's a topic for another podcast, I think.
Yeah.
Ideally, where we know more about that. But just to say that, like, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, this is like a video game that I like. It's like, yeah, it's a different video game. Like, this is not what Pokemon is even trying a little bit to be. And it's not even like like when we would say, I want a game with good graphics that is technically competent, that's a fair standard to have of pretty much any video game, certainly one of a big studio. But like to say that the use of turn-based battles is like in the same category of decision and production mistake feels kind of antagonistic to the JRPG genre. But like the games still sell really well, and I think that's because like deep down there is a lot of truth to the success of that formula, even if it is not the most popular thing broadly. The fact that it still creates a public game, I think it's just, if anything, if we had more JRPG style games that were not like monster collecting, then I think that's kind of suggests that there's some space there, because people clearly like this kind of game loop. And maybe Pokemon's just the only thing really giving it to them for, you know,
that might be part of why Clair Obscur is doing so well.
Yeah. And I mean, like, Final Fantasy, you know, has done stuff, though. Final Fantasy feels like it's been quiet. Well, they've been doing Final Fantasy VII for a while, and that feels like a different can of worms.
Yeah, it's its own franchise now.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That's interesting. So, all that to say, I appreciate that Koromon kind of takes that pedigree and, like, works with it. And is even in its overworld, it kind of uses some stuff that makes me feel like the developers have played more RPGs than Pokemon. Right? Like, there's an overworld puzzle set that reminds me of overworld puzzles in Golden Sun. I don't know if that means they played Golden Sun or they played a game that inspired Golden Sun, or a game that was inspired by Golden Sun that had these log pushing around puzzles, but they have those puzzles that aren't really in the Pokemon games in any way that I can think of. And like that makes me think like, okay, they understand that this is an RPG in and of itself. I could say a lot more of things. I am thinking I might just write a review article about this to try to get all of my thoughts on paper, because I have a lot of things to say, and the whole podcast could become this. So we'll see. But I think we will wrap this up for now. So Thank you for listening to this episode of the GameCola podcast. If you like what you heard, check us out on our actual internet website, GameCola.net. That's where I will post the review if I ever finish it. You can also see old reviews. You can see other episodes of this podcast. You can see other articles that people have posted, stuff like the year-end award or the middle of the year-end awards that we do, which is a little bit more recent. We also have the YouTube channel where James is playing Super Metroid, and then we'll be playing the next Super Metroid hack video series thing that I don't quite understand, but I think will be very interesting based on what he has said about it in the Super Metroid playthrough on the YouTube channel. And of course, we've got videos going back quite a long time for various series. I'm sure if there's a video game type that you like, we've got some kind of playthrough of a video game like that. You can go to the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, just Google Podcasts probably still eating us up, our RSS feed somehow. Just search GameCola and you'll find us on any of those things or on anything really if we're there. Check out the Discord. There's links in the YouTube description and on the website. Yeah, I think those are the main things. Anything else?
We promise the next podcast won't take 8 years to come out.
8 years until the next podcast episode. No, it'll be next month when we will see you. And in the meantime, have a wonderful time of day, wherever it is, whenever it is you are listening to this podcast. And as I said before, we will see you next month. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
I'm buzzing off now. Bzzz. Because we did these at the beginning.
Yes,
I was going to say I like the inversion there. I didn't do a B joke. I did do a B joke at the beginning, but you didn't. And now I didn't do a B joke at the end, but you did.
Yeah, it's what do they call it?
Duality or something.
Nope. It's like the Hungry Caterpillar. It's a circular story.
An Ouroboros?
There's a
Ouroboros.
literary
That's
term.
a snake.
The Aurora Borealis?
I don't know. It got bookended, I guess, is another way to say it.
Yeah, that sounds like a boring way to say it. I prefer the Aurora Borealis personally.
The Ouroboros Borealis.
Not
It's a boring Ouroboros Borealis.
in the sky. I will stop recording now.
Yeah, I think that's a good coda.